Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. So before we get too far, we're making it clear, alright? It's a whole pandemic. You should be in your house, alright? You shouldn't be looking for apartments. You shouldn't be going nowhere. You should be staying where you're staying right now. And you should be doing that until it's safe for us to move about. Having said all that, sometimes you gotta move. I moved during a pandemic back in April, and I'm gonna take this video to talk to y'all about what my experience has been like. I moved back in April, so it was past the 2-week quarantine. We're gonna be alright. We had given up hope on that. We knew we were just gonna be in struggle city for who knew how long. And I knew I needed my own space. And also my roommate was like, girl, you loud. Leave my house. And I was like, I understand. I just want to share what my experience was like moving here in LA during quarantine, as well as some logistics and some tips and some tricks and some advice and things you should consider. Before we get into it, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe. We love to have the family grow. Appreciate each and every one of y'all. I feel the love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so I'm going to break this video down into two things. One, just the logistics, pure logistics of moving during a pandemic. And the second is things to consider when looking for your space, given that we are in a pandemic and it's gonna last for some amount of time. So I use apartments.com to find my apartment. On apartments.com, you can filter by number of bedrooms, price range, location, laundry on site, pets available, all these different factors. And that's what I use to figure out what apartment would make sense for me. And I straight up just sent an inquiry using the website to apartments that I thought were cool. The process, honestly, from when I had the conversation with my roommate, it was mid-April. We just finished up a 6-month lease. I was down to stay for longer, but she was like, girl, you loud. I can't have that in my home. She said it very sweetly though, which I appreciate. We had the conversation on a Wednesday. When I tell you Wednesday night, I was on apartments.com looking for a new spot. I emailed this place that I found that same night, and then on Thursday, they got back to me and we were setting up a time to talk, and they were sending me the application. I filled out the application that same day, sent it back to them, and Friday, my application had been approved and I was here in person looking at the apartment, and they got back to me and they ran my credit and they were like, yep, girl, you got good credit. Hey, you can go ahead and move in if you want to. So it's gonna be a very quick process. It does not need to take long for you to find a new space. So the whole process for me looking for a space and moving in actually only took 2 weeks. So how we set up the walkthrough was super simple and totally COVID safe. I was able to just call the building manager and he let me into the building, and they had left the door unlocked to this unit so that I could walk around. Once I done a tour of the place and I realized I liked it, the process continued to be super simple. I just got written checks of first month's rent and my security deposit. I walked into the apartment, left my check, and then he walked into the apartment, got the check, left the keys, and then, I was right there waiting in the lobby watching him do it. And so we had a nice little exchange. And that was it. So the process was super duper easy. The most important thing for me, besides having a bed to sleep on, was actually getting my Wi-Fi set up. So as soon as I had the lease signed, the first thing I did was call up Spectrum. Spectrum is the internet company in, I don't know if that's the greater Los Angeles area, but it is in this neighborhood. And so I just gave them a call, had them send the box here to the apartment so that I could be ready to set up that Wi-Fi. And so I kind of timed my leave, when I was moving out of my old space into this space, based on when the Wi-Fi box would get here. So when I moved into my space, literally all I needed was an Uber XL because I really just didn't have that much stuff. I just finished traveling before I moved here to LA, so I was down to a suitcase anyway, and I hadn't acquired that much in the 6 months that I was here because I also knew that this room that I was staying in was not gonna be my permanent home. And so when it came time for me to move, I didn't need to rent a U-Haul or anything like that. I just packed my suitcase and arrived. And then everything I needed, I just had delivered to the apartment using Amazon. I know, truly the devil, but so convenient. And that's what makes Amazon the devil, is the fact, do we hear that? Do we hear the outside noise? My bed was shipped here, plus the mattress and the frame and television and desk and light and all this stuff I just had sent here. If you've seen my apartment tour, all that stuff I just had sent to me. Yeah, the whole process truly took 2 weeks and I was chilling in my new apartment. Okay, so beyond logistics, let's talk about things you should be thinking about as you're trying to figure out where you want to live and what kind of environment you want to live in. Obviously, when you're moving into any space, you're always thinking about neighborhood. And what's tricky about moving during a pandemic is that you don't actually know what the energy of the neighborhood is because we're in this weird half open, half closed lockdown state. And so you're not really getting a sense of what the neighborhood would look like if it was really thriving. And unfortunately, a lot of what creates a neighborhood and its vibe has to do with its small businesses, with its grocery stores, the people who are just walking around, being out and about, the concert venues, the movie theaters, all these different elements of city life. And unfortunately, we know a lot of those places have been closing down, and unfortunately, if they're small businesses, probably won't be able to reopen again. So as you're looking at neighborhoods, you have to think beyond just what is this neighborhood like when it's thriving, to the reality of, will I want to still be in this neighborhood as things open up again? And am I getting the hints that this is going to be a neighborhood neighborhood that will continue to prosper or to be like a place that you want to live in after we reopen. The other thing you should really consider too is the level of unhoused folks in your neighborhood. I wish I could say if there will be an unhoused situation or homeless problem at all. It really is like, what is the level going to be? Is it just going to be like, oh, a couple of homeless folks who, you know, like just kind of hang out in the neighborhood, and that's like, honestly, I think a pretty good deal. And that, to be clear, is still incredibly heartbreaking. Literally the other day, I was hanging out in my living room and I could hear just heart-wrenching sobs from the unhoused person just like sitting on the curb openly weeping. Like it is the most upsetting thing. Or is it going to be like full-on tents right outside of your neighborhood and like stepping in like human feces and things like that, which unfortunately is a reality for some people here in LA. So just really actually spend time in your neighborhood before you sign on the dotted line and get a vibe and get a sense of the space, because that'll just become your emotional reality as soon as you move in, and it will be an oppressing reality if you are being confronted by the homeless challenge in our city every single day. I was looking for a walkable neighborhood because I don't have a car, but I think it's good to have a walkable neighborhood regardless, because you're gonna just be in your house all day and you're gonna wanna break up the monotony of that and just get fresh air and just change your scenery by going on a walk. Like, it's been one of the major things I've done during quarantine is just go on 1 to 2 walks a day. And because I live in a neighborhood where I can do that, it's not a big deal. But for instance, I spent about a week during quarantine in Marina del Rey. That's a neighborhood that's like, you know, right on the water, right near the beach. And I assumed like, oh, this will be a great place to be for the quarantine, like a nice little vacation. But the reality is that the amount of effort it took for me to get from my apartment and walk out of the building to the actual like street and to the beach and to where stuff was actually a lot. It wasn't really walkable. It wasn't convenient. It didn't feel comfortable to do that. And I'm sure if you lived there, it would make every time you left the house like kind of a bit of a chore. And then, you know, if you were gonna leave it all, you probably would just be like, well, since I'm leaving, let me just get in my car and go somewhere. So something to keep in mind is just having a place where you feel like you can just like leave your immediate home and be out in nature. If you don't have a balcony in your space, I don't have one in mine, try to find an apartment that has some kind of outdoor seating area where you can just chill and debrief and relax and soak up the sun. My apartment has a space like that, and I regularly just walk out back there and just sit alone and feel the sun on me. And it's such a nice break from being in my space, and it's so necessary, and it feels safer than just, you know, wandering around the city. So the kind of space you're gonna be living in and who you're gonna be living with is obviously gonna be very dependent on what your money is looking like. And I would say if you can afford to live alone and if you can afford to get a 1-bedroom, I would strongly encourage it. Now, it's of course also based on your disposition. I'm the kind of person who genuinely enjoys solitude, genuinely likes to create spaces that reflect my energy and my spirit, likes to do things in my own time, likes to own everything that I'm looking at, loves to like, you know, have a space and know like this is my space. And so it was really important for me to live alone, but I know that's not a reality for everyone. So I would say if you are in a space where you have to look for roommates, just be incredibly careful about who you are rooming with. There's a phrase that I love, and it's that if you're wearing rose-colored glasses, red flags just look like flags. And I need you to not have that life, okay? Don't have the rose-colored glasses of desperately needing a place to live during a pandemic, because all those things that maybe would be like a little bit annoying if you could just like leave the house and like hang out with different people and see different people are going to be so magnified because you are trapped in your house. So if you meet someone and there's like, ooh, they got something about them that really annoys me, don't, as the red flags wave, acknowledge them. I live in a 1-bedroom too, which is also such a blessing because your home will become your prison. Like, that is the reality of quarantine. That's the reality of lockdown. This is a nightmare. It is a waking nightmare that we cannot escape from, but we will get through it eventually. But until then, we must just live in it. So as many different cages, as many different prison cells that you have at your disposal, the more likely you are to maintain your sanity while being under this quarantine. What are you doing in my fridge? This is weird, okay? I'm talking to you about my apartment and how to get one of your own, but you don't need to like move in with me. We're not there yet in our relationship. But honestly, we can get there if you start by giving this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and maybe subscribers becomes lovers. Who knows? Who knows is all I'm gonna say, okay? All right, back to the video. One thing to consider too is how your use of spaces will change depending on your quarantine level. For instance, my bedroom gets 0 natural light. And at first, you know, I was like bummed by that because, you know, light is great. But actually having no natural light in that bedroom has meant that I'm not attuned to the rising and setting of the sun when it comes to sleep. So I'm able to just like sleep for insane amounts of time because the light isn't there to wake me up. So just keep these things in mind as you're looking around, because you never know which things that might be like a negative in normal times is actually a nice benefit in quarantine times. And the final thing I'll say is that if you weren't going to do this already, definitely talk to your building manager about lowering your rent if you can and negotiating on that. People are fleeing the city, which sounds very dramatic, but the numbers are suggesting that. Not only are people just leaving as the natural churn, but also people who would be moving in for school and all that stuff, they haven't come in. So overall, there is less demand for a lot of apartments across the city. So you might be able to actually negotiate a lower rent than you otherwise would be paying if you just took the price that was advertised. So yeah, those are my tips and things to consider if you're thinking about moving during this pandemic and trying to find a spot here in LA. I found it to be really, really easy. I feel very, very blessed and very, very lucky that I was able to find this spot. It was super painless getting in here. I have genuinely loved living here. Of course, it's an apartment in a city, and so there's always annoying things that suck, but as in all things, I choose to focus on what gives me joy and what gives me light, and as a result, I have had a really beautiful time in my apartment here in LA, and I feel so blessed that during a pandemic, I've got a space to call my own, to pour myself into, to decorate, to love, to feel loved in, and I hope the same for you. Good luck on your search to find a place to live during a whole pandemic. Overall, it's not that hard. You can definitely do it. Definitely be safe, of course, stay masked up, but you'll be all right. Like, it's totally fine, and worst comes to worst, you know, you'll just break your lease, move, flee the city like everyone else, and then make a video about why you're leaving LA. Thanks for watching, y'all. I really appreciate it. Give me a like if you found this video helpful. Subscribe to see more. I really appreciate all of y'all's support. It really means a lot to me. And drop me a comment below. Like, what neighborhoods are you looking in? Any particular questions or advice that you would like as you're doing your apartment or home search? More than happy to help and talk to y'all in the comments. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.